Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for coming to this session. I see some of you standing, and I realize that the seats don't necessarily give you all an ideal view, thanks to these posts. So do what you need to do to be able to see. The speakers will be up here when they're presenting, and the session will be, our presentations will go first, and then half of the session will be devoted to discussion and Q&A. So we welcome your questions. Please feel free to ask for clarification while everybody is speaking, and certainly jot down your notes and questions and thoughts as we get to the discussion period. So this session is titled Metrics 2.0, which is really a little bit of a look currently at what's happening in the industry and a little bit of a look ahead in terms of where this can go, because we're in the very nascent period of this next generation of metrics. And I think it's very exciting in terms of what the possibilities are. I'm Judy Luther with Informed Strategies, and I'm the moderator for the panel today. Journals, as we have known them in the print world, were very clearly focused on issues and had a very clear structure. And some of that, as the journals were brought online, began to break down a bit with article first publishing. And we have databases of articles. And end users, authors will think in terms of journals and editors, but the user often thinks in terms of the article and less about the journal. Journals have evolved into, or are evolving into, what some term a publishing ecosystem. And that's actually a very broad series of content sources. It's always good when all the speakers are present. It's a good thing. So what we have in an online environment is a growing publishing ecosystem. It was interesting last night, I thought, when Tim O'Reilly spoke, that he spoke about authors. I mean, all the things he had on his focus were byproducts or products of something that an author created. And if we think about it in the scholarly environment, it is the researchers and their interests. Currently, their articles appear in a series of journals, usually a very diverse set of journals, depending on the topic that they're publishing in. But their content is not really coherently pulled together in many places other than perhaps their bio. On this author, ORCID ID corner down here, you'll know that ORCID is the emerging standard for author identification and disambiguation. And I think that, coincident with our emergence of Altmetrics, gives us an opportunity to really focus on the output of different researchers and be able to pull that together with a series of links to their work, regardless of the format. It could be a slide deck, it could be a video, could be a webinar, could be a YouTube. So begin to think a little more broadly about that. And metrics themselves have for a long time been focused on the journal. Obviously, the Thompson impact factor has been the standard that we've used for evaluating journals. Elsevier has introduced the SJR and the SNP, also citation-based. And libraries depend upon they're introducing a usage factor. Libraries have depended upon counter downloads. And this usage factor is also journal-based, summed from the downloads of the various articles. And Counter is also introducing Purist article downloads. So they have two new products coming out, one still focused on the journal, but the next set focused on the article. And there are publishers such as PLOS and IOP that are introducing article-level metrics. The only metric I'm familiar with that focuses specifically on the author is the H-index. But the ORCID ID, I think, is going to give us an opportunity to pull together more of their works. And then the question is, how do we, in a fast-moving environment like the Internet, evaluate or assess the output of the researcher? So there's this emerging category of altmetrics, and we have a panel that I'll introduce in a minute, who are the creators and the authorities on these evolving altmetrics. I borrowed this from Andrea's slides because I thought it was a fairly good description of some of the type of metadata that is being collected. Some standard ones under usage, downloads, but some additional data related potentially to interlibrary loans, document deliveries, captures. Once somebody uses something, they may want to bookmark it for future reference. If they read it in HTML, they'll download a PDF. Subsequently, they may cite it, obviously tweeting about it and mentioning it in blog posts. So there's a whole array, and this isn't all of them, nor is it necessarily the set that everybody uses, but it gives you a sense of the range of different types of data that are being assessed. So let me introduce our panelists in no particular sequence, but I'll start here on the end. Jason Priam, who is with Impact Story. Next to him is Andrea Mahalik from Plum Analytics. And next to Andrea is Ewan Eddy, with us from the UK, and he's with Altmetrics, which is owned by Macmillan. In digital science, it's part of the digital science suite of tools owned by Macmillan, which also owns Nature. So if you want to see Altmetrics in action, you can also see them in Nature. And on the far end, we are happy to have Martin Finner here from PLOS. So without further ado, I will begin with Andrea.